What's up, cool people? I'm Matt Conroy. Welcome to my vlog. And first off, can I just say, what has been going on with the weather recently? I mean, it seems like all across the US, at least, there was kind of a tease of, oh, hey, it's spring, nice weather. And then it got cold. Now, here in Texas, it's pretty much just been, maybe going down to the lows of upper 30s, and just kind of, I don't know, it fluctuates a lot in the area of Texas that I'm in. But I've heard around Pennsylvania and other northern states, there's been snow coming sporadically. And yeah, so can we just have spring now, please? I don't want second winter. That can go away. Anyway, just tangents. But anyway, just that was on my mind. Thought I'd mention it. What I really wanted to talk about is kind of a follow-up to a couple weeks ago when I was talking about sharing our stories and that kind of stuff. I figured I would share a little bit more about myself, and I'm gonna mention a story from kind of my early childhood and use that as somewhat of an allegory for my, faith life, or at least the early stages of my faith life. Some of it's going to be a little bit of a stretch, if I'm honest, but it's just bear with me, and we'll try to work through this. And again, I was little in terms of when this story happened, so my memory of some of the finer details of it may be a bit lacking, but, so, this story is one that I tell just, I don't know, every once in a while when I encounter some new people who are getting to know me, and, the subject of swimming in deep water and stuff like that will come up, and I'll mention that, I don't really like swimming much, or I'm not a really good swimmer, or stuff like that. I'll mention this story. Now, I won't get in, when I'm talking with them, I won't try and use this as some sort of faith life allegory, but we'll get to that later. So, I don't even know how old I was exactly. I was certainly less than 10, for sure. I'm thinking somewhere between ages 5 and 10, but I was taking some swimming classes at a YMCA, and it's just something that I guess my parents did to try and help me learn how to swim, because learning how to swim is a helpful thing. But this one time I was there, and honestly, I think part of what was going on was that there was only one lifeguard that was really teaching the class, and maybe a few more kids than I'm pretty sure was female. Pretty sure the lifeguard was female. I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure there were some more kids than that one lifeguard was really able to keep a good eye on all the time. But so what happened was, in this swimming class, this particular lesson, we were just working on kicking our feet. And meanwhile, we were holding on to these little floaty kind of dumbbell looking things, holding onto those and just kicking. And so I'm working on this, moving right along. It's a YMCA pool, so the water is kind of deep. And I'm out kind of towards the middle of it at this point, when eventually my grip on the little floaty dumbbell thing slips. I go into the water, completely. I don't know how deep exactly, but I am completely surrounded by water. Every single dimension. So at this point, I was still learning how to swim, so I wasn't real sure what to do in this situation, other than just, my natural instinct was to just kind of try and look up towards what seemed to be the brightest spot, claw whatever my way up to the air up to the surface. And then the second I got there, there happened to be another one of the floaty dumbbell things right close by. I like grabbed onto that and then tucked it under my elbow like I'm holding onto it for my life, because in my mind I kind of was. And so I forget really what happened exactly after that. I know from going over this story with my parents and my mom in particular that she was watching me through some sort of window or maybe like a glass door sort of thing. But she was about ready to bust through that and just come and save me herself. But eventually I got out of there. I think I was pretty much done for the day after that. And so, yeah, that has, I mean, maybe I'm thinking subconsciously that little incident has sort of affected my swimming since then. I can kind of swim-ish these days, but it looks more like, it looks more like flailing that moves me in a certain direction more than it is actually swimming. But, if I absolutely need to, I can swim some short distances without too many complications. But, like, anytime I'm in deep water, especially water that I know is deep enough that I can't touch the bottom of it and still have my face, above the surface where I can breathe, like, my heart rate just automatically picks up a lot. And all this kind of stuff that it's like, I don't even think about it. It just happens automatically. And despite having multiple occurrences of being in deep water and being totally fine since then, it's just one of those things, it just kind of kicks in. Trying to translate this into my early faith life. So if we're trying to go with this allegory, early on in my childhood, I was, I was practically raised in the church. I also went to a private Christian school up through 5th grade until my family moved. But, those couple of things, I mean, in terms of faith life, obviously my family was a part of it too. My parents were both Christian parents. They grew up in church, different kinds of church, but they grew up in church. And so that was just a part of my faith life. But, I kind of had these things going on in my life of like church and school where I was really learning specifically different things in the Bible. And kind of had those things that I was holding on to and floating along and trying to kick my feet, working my way through my life in my childhood. And then after a while, though, it just seemed like I was hearing the same stuff over and over and over again from church and from school in terms of the Bible and faith and that kind of stuff. And by the way, to my parents, if you're watching this, this is the point where I'm going to say this is absolutely nothing against you and how I was brought up. I don't even say that any of this stuff that happened in my childhood and the way I was raised was bad at all. Because it gave me a good starting point, a good foundation to work off of. I'll allude it to the whole practicing the kicking and that being what really gets you moving through the, swimming pool of faith and life and that kind of stuff. But, continuing the story and the allegory, eventually I got bored with hearing the same stories over and over again. I mean, it was all the same kind of basic childhood kid-friendly stories that you would hear from the Bible. I mean, obviously, especially around Christmas time, you'd hear about Jesus and him being born and kind of, gloss over the finer details of what happened when Jesus died. And they just say, he died to save us from sin and all that kind of stuff. You get some Old Testament stories mixed in there, like Daniel in the Lion's Den, or some stuff about Moses, or, different things here and there. But a lot of it was like as G-rated as possible, all the stuff that I was told. And it kept getting repeated over and over again. So eventually my kind of learning from it, my focus on all that just kind of dwindled, and I got bored with it, honestly. There was nothing really new about the Bible that I was learning, unless you count memorizing some specific Bible verses, but they were ones I already heard a bunch of times before, and so that's where I'll say was the equivalent of me kind of losing my grip on my little floaty dumbbell things of church and school. So I lose track of those, and I just feel like I'm totally inundated in all this basic, boring Bible stuff that it just all seems the same to me. And I want to try to get myself out of it, but it's just what I'm surrounded by. So then, eventually, again, allegory, continuing, I'd kind of almost say that when my family moved was the equivalent of me getting myself back up to the surface, finally getting that fresh air, and again, grabbing onto and clinging to one of those dumbbells for dear life. The one that remained was definitely church, because in terms of my faith, I stopped going to a private Christian school after my family moved. So, I still clung to that church life, and it became all the more significant to me after my family moved. There were a whole lot of factors to it. It was just a different style of church. It was both the same denomination, both in my early childhood and then after my family moved. But, it was just younger congregation after we moved, the different style of music they did, and the different way they looked at the Bible, and really just starting to hear some different stories from the Bible, things I had never heard before. And so that really kind of, I clung to that, and that kept me going in my faith life for a while, until eventually things got sorted out, kind of got my groove back, so to speak, and, eventually it worked as a good, solid base to build off of. And then after, starting to hear these other stories from the Bible and asking a lot of questions about the Bible and faith and how we integrate that into our lives and how it all works together, that's when my own personal faith really started to take off. And I'm not going to go too much further with this, because I'm sure if I kept going, it would be a really long, drawn-out kind of story. I might tell the rest of it. It's just I'd rather do this in parts. So that's kind of one of the stories that stands out from my childhood, and kind of how it serves as an allegory for some of my early faith development and my upbringing and that kind of stuff. Again, I'm not saying any of this was really bad or wrong. It gave me a good foundation to build off of, like I said. But I think had I just stayed where I was, had my family stayed where we were, and, I kept going to that Christian school and kept going to the same church and hearing the same stories all the time, I don't think my faith would have ever really truly come through, my own faith. It would have just been this kind of thing that I believed in, and then when some tougher times came around, I don't know for sure if I would have really still been leaning on God and really held to my faith very strongly. So, I think that about does it in terms of this particular story from my life. Feel free to, kind of share your own stories. I don't think there's a word limit to YouTube comment section or anything like that, or even Facebook or anything like. Maybe if you're finding this on Twitter or Instagram, there's a character limit. I'm not as sure about that, but hey, just leave some comments if you've got any big faith stories that you're wanting to share, or just stories from your life in general. Again, part of the reason I wanted to do this whole story sharing idea is just that I feel like a lot of people are looking to have someone out there who understands them, or at least that who they feel like knows them well. And in order to really know a person well, you have to know where they've come from and what's brought them to where they are and what they're currently doing, and, you know, what has developed certain attitudes and habits and mindsets and things like that. So this was part of my effort to contribute to that idea. And that's really about it for now. I'm probably going to come back to this idea another time, maybe in the next video, or I might do some other stuff in between. I don't know, but just thought I would share a little bit more myself and let you all get to know me a bit better. So, that's all I've got. As always, like, share if you enjoyed, subscribe, and ring the bell, or click the bell button thing to get updates when I put stuff on YouTube. All my social media stuff is going to be down in the description. As I said, leave some comments below with your thoughts on this video, on the general story sharing idea. If you want to share your own story there, go ahead. My only request in that is, if you're seeing somebody else commenting with a story from their life, don't just be all like, that's stupid, because making a comment like that is stupid. You're like trying to invalidate someone's upbringing or background or something like that, and it comes across as like you're saying their life is dumb and stupid and pointless, and I'm not trying to build that sort of environment. So, aside from that, leave some comments below with your thoughts and stories and ideas and that kind of stuff. So, I guess that's it. I hope you're all doing well, and hopefully I will see you in the next video. Stay cool, people.